What is up everybody, my name is Kelvar, and today we're going to be going over a champion tier list for the NA LCS Playoffs that are going to be happening this weekend. Now before I start, I wanted to say that I'm not going to be going over an in-depth discussion about every single champion. As you can see on your screen, I have quite a few in every lane or jungle. I wanted to more so just put this information out there and talk about some other specific champions that we might see. That being said, this video isn't going to be so much visual as it is audio, so you'll be able to listen to this video while doing other things. So let's start off in the top lane. As you can see, my S tier picks I placed there are Rumble, Camille, and Renekton. And right below that, you'll see my A tier picks with Gragas, Maokai, Jace, Nautilus, Poppy, Shen, Fiora, and Gnar, in no particular order. But before we talk about Gnar, I wanted to talk a little bit about the S picks. There's no question why Camille is such a highly prioritized pick in the LCS right now. She has incredible lane dominance, insane mobility, and can lock down an AD carry or an AP mage instantaneously with her ultimate. Much like Camille, we have Renekton, who has insane lane pressure, who can just dash in, stun, Q, and dash out, and poke down the enemy champion for about half of their health with one combo. The biggest weakness with Renekton, however, is the fact that he doesn't scale as well as other top lane champions, but that necessarily shouldn't mean too much. If Renekton did his job and got as much of an early lead as he should have, then LCS teams should have no problem snowballing that lead into a victory. And finally, Rumble. Rumble can provide a lot of pressure in the top lane just simply by farming and using his Flame Spitter to poke down the enemy champion. Once he has successfully pushed his enemy laner under tower, all he has to do is walk off of the minimap and be invisible to the enemy team to provide insane amounts of pressure to the mid lane and jungle. But I'm sure none of you are interested in these S tier picks and would much rather me talk about why I put Gnar in the A tier. If I recall correctly, I believe the LCS playoffs are going to be played on patch 7.6, which is when Gnar got his health regen stat buff nerfed at the same time. But that's not why I put him in the A tier list. I put him in the A tier list because Gnar has actually some pretty good matchups right now for the current meta top laners, like Renekton, like Camille, like Rumble. Gnar should be able to deal with a Camille and a Rumble much easier than a melee matchup should be, and he pretty much just counters Renekton in every sense of the word. He's a ranged champion to Renekton's melee champion, and can honestly turn the tables on him by just poking him out with his range, which effectively negates the purpose of picking Renekton to get an early lead. I don't think we're going to see Gnar a lot, but I definitely think he could be picked up during the playoffs. Okay, and moving on to jungle. My personal lane of choice, we're going to talk about a couple of picks here in the S tier, which is Rengar and Graves. Trust me, I am just as annoyed at only seeing Rengar and Graves in ban and pick phases. It's so aggravating. But still, these two champions are the only two that I think could live up to the S tier. I really don't think there's going to be too much versatility in the jungle, seeming as how I have Gragas, Elise, Lee Sin, and Kha'Zix as A tiers. Even after the patch 7.5 slight buffs to Kindred, I don't think it'll make too much of a difference in pick percentage, so I don't necessarily have a real surprise pick in the jungle here. So let's just move right onto the mid lane. So for the S tier picks in the mid lane, I have Vlad, Ahri, and Syndra. Followed up by the A tiers, which would be Orianna, Jace, LeBlanc, Cassiopeia, and possibly Talia and Kassadin. Vlad as a backline diver and an AP mage has so much damage and such a ridiculous amount of sustain that it's almost silly people didn't pick him up earlier. He's got some amazing safety with his pool and can burst down an entire enemy team with his ultimate. Not to mention, if he's played right, he can just straight up counter Ahri and Syndra with pulling the charm or pulling the ultimate. Speaking of that ultimate, have you seen an AD carry? No, because I haven't either. They just exploded. And it's for that reason that I have Syndra as an S tier pick. She can deal with Ahri relatively well, especially if she gets ahead, and while Vlad does counter her, she can still provide a lot of pressure to other carries on the enemy team. And then there's Ahri. Ahri has insane roam potential, crazy burst, and amazing mobility. So much so that when Ahri disappears on the minimap, the enemy team has to give complete respect to the fact that she could be coming to their lane. The threat that Ahri could just jump over the wall, charm the enemy jungler or AD carry, and get an insta-burst kill is just too great, and that's why she's in the S tier list with Vlad and Syndra. And now we get to talk about the thing that I'm sure you're all questioning, Talia and Kassadin. Starting with Talia, the reason I have her in my A tier list potentially is the fact that roaming mid laners are pretty insane right now, and to be completely honest, Talia has one of the easiest times roaming ever because of her ultimate. She can cut off the enemy AD carry and support from their turret with her ultimate and easily facilitate a 4-man dive with either the top lane's teleport or the jungler. And that's why I have Talia as a potential A tier pick. But Kassadin? So, I have Kassadin on this list for a couple of reasons. One, he deals well with AP mages, he has reduced damage because of his passive, and he has a magic shield that he gets from his Q. And much like Talia and Ahri, he has insane roaming potential with his ultimate. You know the ADC in 2K17 meme? Well, Kassadin was that meme before it was cool in 2014. So while I don't think Kassadin will be very highly prioritized, I do think that it is possible we see him picked in the LCS. Moving on to the bot lane. So we have the S tier picks here. I'm going to put Lucian, Ezreal, and Ashe in the S tier picks currently. I'm pretty sure those are self-explanatory, and the only thing that you're really questioning right now is why isn't Jhin, Caitlyn, or Varus in the S tier pick? Quite honestly, Varus got a little bit of a nerf with his passive and his Q. Jhin, while he is strong right now, the fact that he can only auto 4 times then has to reload is kind of a big issue. When you're dealing with these massive tanks like a Shen, like a Nautilus, like a Poppy, like a Gragas, Jhin just has a difficult time penetrating their defenses. And yes, Jin's biggest strength is the fact that he has long range damage and engage with his ultimate. He just can't match the sustained damage of current AD carries in the meta right now. Not to say Jhin is bad, he's still a very good champion, which is why I have him at 8, but I just think that Ezreal, Ashe, and Lucian can bring more to the table. The interesting pick I have here is Kog'Maw. We saw Kog'Maw picked up once, I think, by Cloud9 this past week or two, and he didn't do very well. I have Kog'Maw as an A tier pick because he can do a lot of damage, and when I say a lot, I mean holy shit, a lot of damage. The problem with Kog'Maw is when we're in a meta like we currently are with the Camille, with the Nautilus, with the Renekton, with the Rumble, Camille can dive the backline, instantly give Kog'Maw. Nautilus, if he gets a hook or a depth charge on Kog'Maw and follow up with the enemy team, then boom, Kog'Maw's donezo. Renekton is a backline diver. As soon as he gets on Kog'Maw, then it's donezo. Rumble, while he's not a backline diver, has his equalizer where if he throws it on Kog'Maw, he effectively reduces Kog'Maw's effective range and pushes Kog'Maw out of a fight, or he gets cooked alive. So it makes it really difficult for Kog'Maw in this current meta to actually deal with anything. Not to mention the fact that junglers like Rengar, who can just insta-give people, we have backline divers like Ahri or Vlad in the mid lane. The current meta is really not good for Kog'Maw right now because there's so many meta champions that can just dive him and blow him up, which is why he's pretty much always paired with a Lulu, which is a perfect segue into the support role. Now with supports, I organize them a little bit differently. Starting with the A tier, I have Lulu. Yep, that's right, only Lulu. Followed up with the A tier, which would be Karma and Zyra. And then finally the B tier, which would be Malzahar, Nami, Misfortune, Thresh, and Tahm Kench. I feel like Lulu being the only S tier pick is pretty self-explanatory, but I'll go over it anyways. Lulu is able to provide an immense amount of pressure in the bot lane. She pretty much makes it impossible for the enemy laners to win a trade with her Glitter Lance, her Polymorph, her shields, her attack speed buff, and her ultimate. And that's why Lulu is pretty much the S tier pick alone, is the fact that she just does everything. She's relevant all game because her abilities allow her to be effective at every point in the game. And because her bread and butter is the fact that she can keep teammates alive, she doesn't really rely on damage, so she doesn't fall off as hard as someone like Misfortune would. But that's enough about Lulu. Let's talk about the A tier picks. Karma fills in the similar role as Lulu in the fact that she can bring quite a bit of poke damage and a lot of safety to her team. Her empowered shield is pretty much like a locket for her entire team, and the fact that it speeds them up is just a bonus. Not to mention that her empowered Q can also slow people, and the fact that she can snare targets that she chooses. Malzahar and Karma fill a pretty similar role in the fact that they bring a lot of damage and utility to the team fights. Malzahar pretty much forces the enemy team to build a QSS if they don't want to get locked down with his ultimate, not to mention the amount of pressure he can provide in the laning phase. While Malzahar's forte is knocking down one target on the enemy team, a QSS simply counters that completely, which is the reason he's only an A tier pick. The reason I have Zyra here is the fact that she has so much pressure and zone control with her ultimate. Her plants do provide a lot of damage, and she can lock down targets if she hits her roots. And if she places her ultimate right, she can pretty much win a team fight by herself. She's also really good for objective control like Baron and Dragon, simply because her ultimate takes up the entirety of the pit or the entrance to the pit, which makes it incredibly hard for the enemy team to try and engage on them. Other than that, some interesting supports that we might see in the playoffs are Thresh and Tahm Kench, but those are pretty self-explanatory, so I don't necessarily need to go over those. And that about covers every lane. So if you think I'm right, if you think I'm wrong, please let me know. I'd love to hear about your opinions. I'd love to talk about the playoffs and the LCS, what team you think is going to win. Let me know in the comment section below with hashtag FlyC9TSMWin, whatever team you're rooting for, let me know because I'd love to hear it. Thank you all very much for watching my playoffs video. I hope you all enjoyed it enough to subscribe, and if you did, I hope to see you all in my next video. And as always, I wish you all the best of luck in solo queue.